Perfect. Hey, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us for the 2022 Texas Supportive Housing Institute Informational Webinar. My name is Kevin James. I use he, him pronouns, and I work for TSAHC. And we're going to get started here today with introductions with myself and my co-presenter. Again, I'm Kevin James from CSH. I'm a senior program manager, and I've been at CSH for roughly about 2 months. I'm located in Houston, Texas, and I work on the Southwest team, which has a geographic location in Nevada, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, as well as Texas. And I have team members that may be participating in the Institute, Brooke Page and Margaret Adams, that will help hone in on the content that we're delivering. And I will tell you a little bit more about CSH later in today's presentation, but I'll turn it over to Michael Wilt to introduce himself.
Good morning, I'm Michael Wilt, External Relations at the Texas State Affordable Housing Corporation. We host the Supportive Housing Institute. It's supported internally at TSAHC, which is how people refer to our organization, by our Marketing and Communications Department, of which I'm a team member. And the director of our department is also on this call, Katie Claflin. And we also have Laura Ross, and the three of us support the delivery of this institute. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you. And thank you, Laura and Katie, for joining us. Just to go briefly over the agenda for today, we'll try to keep you here at the time that's needed and share the information that you'll need that's applicable. But in that case, we do plan to go over information about CSH as well as TSAHC, but then also highlight our sponsors that would be helping us put on the Texas Supportive Housing Institute. We'll do a brief overview about what is supportive housing. We have a very diverse range of individuals in the room. We just want to make sure that we're able to ground everybody to make sure that we're on the same page as when it relates to supportive housing, and then also go over the 2022 Supportive Housing Institute application, eligibility, and then just an overview of supportive housing institutes, but then also give you the opportunity to ask any questions to CSH as well as TSAHC related to the institute specifically, and any outstanding questions you have related to the application and or the announcement. I do want to let you know that there is a chat feature that you can use. So if you have any questions throughout the duration of this informational webinar, please feel free to enter questions into the chat. Katie will be monitoring the chat, and then we'll also again have time for question and answers at the end of the presentation. Okay, so just wanted to go over some acronyms. When we refer to TSAHC, we're talking about Texas State Affordable Housing Corporation, CSH, the Corporation for Supportive Housing, SHI and Institute we'll use interchangeably, but when we do say SHI or Institute, we are talking about the Texas Supportive Housing Institute, SH Supportive Housing, TA for training and technical assistance, and then persons with lived experience, PWLE. All right, so about CSH, a quick word. We are a national organization with regional offices and staff throughout the country. We focus on supportive housing and housing solutions to improve the lives of vulnerable people. We also help communities maximize their public resources through creating supportive housing. And our ultimate goal is to build strong, healthy, and thriving communities. Okay, so on this slide, you will notice 4 buckets of our work that include training and education, lending, by which we help incentivize communities to invest in supportive housing, policy reform, as well as consulting. So through our consulting and technical assistance lens, we offer our supportive housing institutes. Our institutes are now offered in several cities and states across the country, including Los Angeles, Indiana, Ohio, New Hampshire, and Oregon. But the unique thing about this year's institute is that this is the 3rd cohort of institutes in the state of Texas. And it is our goal to walk alongside each team throughout the duration of the institute to help hone in on training and educational opportunities to help support the learning journey around supportive housing, but then also the development that goes towards supportive housing as well. I'll pass it over to Michael.
Thanks again, Kevin. TSAHC was founded in 1994 at the direction of the state legislature. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. We operate statewide. We have 3 main program areas: build, buy, stay. We help developers build housing. through our development finance programs. We help home buyers purchase homes through our home buyer programs, primarily down payment assistance. And that's how most people know us, is they've used us to help buy a house. And then we have programs designed to help people stay in their homes, whether that's home repair grants or supported services grants, or training for housing counselors for eviction prevention and foreclosure prevention, or becoming home buyer ready. And so this Supportive Housing Institute falls underneath that last bucket, where we're helping people stay in housing or helping them attain a quality, stable, permanent housing. This institute history, or the institute began in 2020. So that was our first year. This is our third year doing it. And the genesis of it was a few years prior to that, in May of 2017, when we began a partnership with the Health and Human Services Commission. And we were trying to design housing, or create more housing opportunities for the most vulnerable Texans, people with long-term illnesses, chronic illnesses, whether that's mental or physical. And we had an understanding that we needed more supportive housing units across the state to serve the most vulnerable Texans. And we had seen the TSAHC Institute deployed across the country. The models I was looking at were in Oregon, in Ohio, and we decided to bring it to Texas. And since that time, we had 6 teams in 2020 go through the Institute. 5 of them successfully completed it. And in 2021, we had 4 teams go through it, and 3 of them successfully completed it. So to date, we've trained 8 teams across the state. And there have actually been some units that have already been placed in service as from Institute teams. The most notable one is Casa de Esperanza in Fort Worth, that was done by Directions Home, which is housed within the city of Fort Worth. Those are city of Fort Worth employees. And they used CARES Act funding in 2020 to acquire a hotel and convert it into permanent supportive housing. So I only mention that to say that no matter where you are in the process of developing supportive housing, we're trying to accommodate all teams. Whether you haven't even identified a site, we hope that you have, or you're already in that acquisition and renovation stage, if that's what you're doing, or you're even in the lease up stage. Whenever we were working with Directions Home, by the time they finished the Institute in December of 2020, they'd already leased up their units. So we have very good examples of teams being in different areas of the supportive housing development process, and we're here to support you no matter where you are. This year, we made the intentional decision to only to geographically limit the Institute to the Central Texas area, the 5-county region. And the reason we're doing that is because of the city and county's call to develop 2,100 supportive housing units in the greater Austin area over the next several years. And we felt like this was a unique opportunity to have the city, county, us at TSAHC, the nonprofit developers that are working to develop the housing, all collectively working towards that same goal. We don't know what we'll do in the future, if we'll bring it back to statewide or if we'll continue to do the geographic focused institutes over the coming years. But we know that for this year, we really had to seize on that opportunity that the city and county was presenting. So that's why it's being geographically limited. That said, if you're outside the Austin area, there will be an opportunity for you to go to this institute at some point. And if you are determined to try and go through it this year and you want to ask me about that, let's have that conversation after this meeting, and we can figure out what may work. And again, this wouldn't be, we have to fundraise for this institute, and this would, we wouldn't be able to put it on without the generous and incredible support of the funders that we've put together every year. Many of these funders are returning year over year. We've found that this is a pretty easy ask for funders, that they are eager to support initiatives like this because they understand the dire need for supportive housing in their communities. So to the extent that we have a title sponsor, that would be Texas Capital Bank this year. JP Morgan Chase has fulfilled that role the past 2 years. And really, we're very thankful for the support that these 2 entities have offered continually year over year. And then our other funders as well, Superior Health over a 2-year period, Frost is a returner, and Sparity as well is also a returning sponsor. And then we also have some asks out to other funders. So a couple months from now, you'll see hopefully some more entities pop up. And I also want to underscore that we have follow-on grants for people that successfully complete this institute, and then also the technical assistance that you'll be provided throughout. And the reason that we're able to offer those grants and the technical assistance is because of these funders.
Thank you for that, Michael. And again, to echo Michael's sentiments, we truly appreciate our funders that come to the table and highlight the importance of supportive housing and why this is so impactful for the individuals that we serve. But I just want to stop sharing about us, CSH and TSAHC, but also get a chance and a pulse of who's in the room. So on your screen, you'll see a chat feature. So we would like to hear back from the participants on the webinar. Can you just let us know first and last name, the organization that you are representing, and then also what your interest is in supportive housing? Again, use the chat feature. We're monitoring that throughout, but could we know who's on the call by introducing yourself with your first and last name, the organization that you're with, and then your interest with supportive housing, specifically the Supportive Housing Institute. Give everybody a second here. And also, if you feel comfortable, come off of mute, turn your camera off, introduce yourself, give us a short snippet if you feel comfortable. Perfect. We have Dylan saying that they have projects in the pipeline at Family Elder Care. Nathan Hoover from Superior Health, which is one of our sponsors, and really elevating the importance of social determinants of health. Ruth from Integral Care, Local Mental Health Authority. Here, learning more about developing housing and sustainable long-term supportive services. That's a good one. Laura Ward from St. Louis House. Am I saying that correctly? Nonprofit provider of long-term supportive housing programs to single mothers and children. Perfect. Thank you for those introductions. As I'm seeing here, based on what Michael was saying, the Supportive Housing Institutes are for teams that are in all phases of the pre-development and planning process. And it sounds like that is exactly what we have represented here. Individuals that are well-versed in supportive housing, some development groups, and just people wanting to learn more about supportive housing and the processes as well. So thank you for sharing that information with us. Roderick, were you gonna share with us?
Oh, yes, because I was trying to type and I just got to eating at the same time. Well, my name is Broderick Allen. I'm with Nada Loans. And so what we do here, I'm a mortgage broker. And so I have become familiar with TSAHC, the MCC program, as well as the down payment assistance program. We make that available to as many clients as we can reach, but also we have the city funds that allows people to become real estate investors with as little as $250, and you're able to invest into a city. And it's kind of like an index ETF to where you can buy, sell, and trade similar to how you would on the stock market. And now we're making real estate investments accessible to the normal guy instead of the big companies and the people with the big pockets. We also make it available to those that may not have as much resource in order to invest in real estate, but want to invest in their city. So yeah, I'll put the link to our website in the chat if anybody has any questions or needs a little bit more into detail. But I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Broderick. Nada is what we do, and I own Miami.
Thank you for sharing with us. And that's what this is all about. That's what this is all about, the Institute. It's getting individuals together in the room to start making some of those coordinated efforts to plan during the pre-development and planning phases, so that way we can serve the individuals that we're all passionate to serve. So again, thank you all. Thank you, Broderick, for coming off and introducing yourself. We'll look forward to you dropping that information here in the chat, and we will move forward with our presentation today. All right, so the next few slides will go over what is supportive housing and then also do a deeper dive into what CSH's supportive housing institutes are. That way you have a clear understanding of like what the commitment is and what we're asking from you as part of a project team. All right, so what is supportive housing? Supportive housing is a result of affordable housing as well as supportive services. Providers actively engage tenants in flexible, voluntary, and comprehensive services and work with property and housing management to support tenant stability and ensure that they remain housed in a positive community asset for the long term. Additionally, supportive housing provides a foundation for housing stability, behavioral health and physical health, employment, community development, and other benefits that people need for recovery and thriving. You'll hear that thriving word a lot throughout today's presentation. And ultimately, when we talk about supportive housing, we're talking about affordable housing with services, okay? So we cannot forget that supportive housing is affordable housing. We'll go over the Supportive Housing Institute. So we host these institutes just to provide information on, and not to just provide information on best practices in the field, but we provide them to do this in partnership with your team members and yourself to help strengthen teams and projects. We also aim to promote co-learning and community building that sets the foundations up for sustainable projects and partnerships to ensure ongoing quality implementation. Okay, so we're making sure that we're focusing on the quality aspect of our supportive housing projects. Additionally, while all of this sounds ideal in a perfect world, CSH recognizes that the planning process takes time and commitment from each member of the project team, especially when you're bringing such diverse teams and varying disciplines to the same table and in the same room at the same time. But we do want to emphasize that if selected to participate in the 2022 Institute, that we strongly encourage that you take this opportunity to shape effective partnerships amongst your team, that you promote housing stability and retention and innovative ways to deliver quality services. And after the Institute, teams are eligible to apply for the CSH Quality Endorsement for Supportive Housing. And the CSH Quality Endorsement for Supportive Housing is presented to project sponsors, they're presented to project sponsors planning to develop supportive housing who submit supporting documentation that we determine demonstrates a commitment to the CSH dimensions of quality standards across all project components. Any questions related to the Supportive Housing Institute specifically or supportive housing in general? Okay, move forward. All right, so the Institute goals. Our Institute goals are to improve communities by ending long-term and/or chronic homelessness, to help reduce the number of households who are experiencing long-term homelessness and cycling in and out of emergency systems, as well as reducing the number of individuals who become homeless after leaving state-operated facilities. So really focusing and honing in on those individuals that are experiencing any type of episodic homelessness or chronic episodic homelessness as well. Our next couple of slides will go over specifically the 2022 Supportive Housing Institute application process, and we'll also include some links in the next slides and the timeline of the Institute and key dates that you should pay attention to, okay? So write down the dates in the next slide because they will be really, really important as we flesh out the application process to apply for the Supportive Housing Institute. So we'll have Katie drop in the link to all of the attendees here, the announcement link that's hosted on TSAHC's website. On that website, you'll have access to some of the information that Michael shared about, why we're making this institute specific to the Austin metro area, but then also how you can apply using SurveyMonkey Apply there as well. The link will be included there. So again, some of the important dates to hone in on here is Friday, July 15th is the application deadline. Applications are due. We will not grant any extensions. Applicants will be notified whether they'll be accepted to participate in the Institute by Friday, August 12th. And also the Institute will begin in September of 2022. And we are expected actual Institute dates to last from September to December, as well as having a finale where project teams will be able to do a project reveal early next year or late this year, you know, just depending on how the holiday schedule treats us. Any questions, comments, concerns about the timeline here that we may be able to answer now?
There's one other date. It's not really a date, Kevin, but sometime in between August 12th and before September 1st, there will be orientation calls between us, CSH, and your collective team.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Michael. And also an FYI, July 15th, the deadline, it is a Friday. Okay, so project teams. Team commitments for the Institute are really, really, really big. We ask for all participant. When we ask for a participant with lived experience, we find that someone who does peer support or provides some type of peers driven services are well-versed in, you know, being on a project team. And as stated, everyone needs to attend every session. We've heard firsthand from teams that you have to do this together and you have to all be at the table consistently in order for project plans to go through and successful. And we know how to do this in person and virtually. Either way, the focus is the same in terms of the team's commitment. So just briefly, project teams may have up to 5 members. Representatives must be someone from a development organization, a property management organization, and a social services organization. So we're really looking at those 3 major components of supportive housing to see who are you bringing to the table, who are you partnering with, and how do those partnerships look, shape, and impact your supportive housing model. But then we're also recommending that you bring an individual with lived expertise, as we stated, someone that is potentially a peer support provider who can offer some information from that service-driven level. Teams must identify a team leader. Teams should incorporate feedback from people with lived experiences into all stages and aspects of their project, which we'll dive deeper into, during the Institute, especially when we talk about things like trauma-informed care designs related to projects. And then all team members must attend all sessions. Okay, so again, we understand that this is a big time commitment, which is the reason why we like to have the informational webinars so teams understand what they're getting themselves into. But we're literally looking to take teams from all phases of the development and planning process and make sure that they have fully fleshed out ideas when they leave the Institute and potentially be endorsed upon completing the Institute as well. Any questions related to project teams, project team members, anything of that nature?
Couple comments on that, Kevin. First, I'll say that there are 3 required participants: the developer, the property manager, and the supportive services entities. Your organization can fill one or more of those roles. Let's say you do services and housing development, then that's fine. You check both of those boxes and you just need to bring in your property manager. I'll also say that in the past, we've had some flexibility if you don't have your team complete. And our strong desire is for you to have all of those 3 primary members of your team together. But if you don't, let us know. And like if you're missing the property manager, for example, then just let us know where you are in that process of identifying one and when you intend to have one on board. And if that person is willing to go to this institute whenever they're selected. So it is technically a requirement that you have those 3 members, all 3 members at a minimum be represented on your team. But if you don't, please let us know and hopefully we'll find a way to work with you. I'll also mention that the persons with lived experience, engaging them is a critical component of this. And it's an enhancement that we made from the 2020 Institute into 2021 and now in 2022. And not only do we ask you to engage persons with lived experience throughout this process, but we're also going to give you feedback from persons with lived experience during the Institute. And then also Kevin mentioned that trauma-informed design as a key component of that. So we've really done our best to be intentional about integrating the voices of those who have lived in this housing to give you a better idea of what they're looking for in the type of housing that they're living in, and some things that you might not have ever considered.
Thank you for that, Michael. Okay, so over the next couple of slides, we will go over the 2022 Supportive Housing Institute application. And then by the end of this session, we will actually walk you through what does that look like on SurveyMonkey Apply as well. Okay, so in terms of the application, using this link, you can also access the application using SurveyMonkey Apply. We will drop the link for the SurveyMonkey workflow here as well. That way you have access to that. And then on that workflow, you will also have access to the SurveyMonkey Apply link. Selection for the Institute, it is competitive. Just want to make that an FYI, but considerations will be given to based on the following factors: commitment to developing supportive housing projects, as well as participating in the Institute, capacity and experience of the team members, including financial stability, quality of the response to the RFP narrative questions, which we'll go over in the SurveyMonkey Apply, but then also alignment with the mission and goals of the Institute, and then housing finance source plan. And we'll make sure that you have the link to the SurveyMonkey Apply as well. And I'll pass it over to Michael to take care of the slide.
Most of this we've covered already, but the deadline is July 15th, Friday, July 15th. It's a pretty straightforward application. We don't think it should take an incredible amount of time to fill out. And again, we've indicated the 5-county area, the Central Texas area, that we're focusing this institute on. So we're inviting teams to apply from the greater Austin area. Like I mentioned at the outset, if you really feel like this is a critical time for you to go through this institute and you're outside the Austin area, just feel free to reach out to me after this, and we can talk through that.
Thank you. And then also Katie dropped in the chat the PDF for the SurveyMonkey Apply workflow, but then she also included in the chat the direct link to the SurveyMonkey Apply Supportive Housing Institute application. And again, we will walk through what that looks like, how to use the workflow as well. All right, so our next couple of slides, we'll go over applicant eligibility, where we take a deeper dive into what does that competitive process mean when it relates to the application process. So in terms of eligible applicants, we are looking for teams that are developing supportive housing. We're looking for teams that include a developer partner, property management partner, as well as supportive services partner. So those 3 stools on the legs to make sure that we are capturing all of the things that make sure that supportive housing is effective and is sustainable. But as Michael said earlier, we do have considerations if a partner is not at the table. You know, we can help work through that during the Institute if you're a team that's selected to participate. Additionally, developing supportive housing for youth, adults and families that are homeless or at risk of homelessness, or developing projects that are involved in the child welfare system, aging out of foster care, or exiting other institutions such as jail, prison, group homes, et cetera. So what is the target population that you are looking to serve in the supportive housing project? But then teams may also include partners who are new to supportive housing as well as more experienced partners. So we are looking at a full spectrum of individuals and their experience as it relates to supportive housing, because that's our goal, to help project teams blend together, to help them figure out ways to work effectively together, but then to also plan so that we can stand up projects in the future.
Just to add on that, Kevin, one of the primary reasons that we launched this institute was to create a pipeline of supportive housing developers. When we took a look at supportive housing development in the state, historically, it was two main developers, New Hope Housing in Houston and Foundation Communities in Austin. They were doing tremendous work, creating hundreds and thousands of units, but only in those geographic areas, Houston and Austin. And there are a number of reasons why that's the case. But regardless, we have an understanding that most of the people who will go through this institute are new, not necessarily new to supportive housing, but they're new to supportive housing development. And we think that's a good thing, because the more organizations that we can help build their capacity and their ability to create that type of housing, then it's going to create more players in this field and ultimately more units across the state. So we understand that the vast majority of people who apply to this will be new to the supportive housing development space. And we see that as a great thing.
Thank you for that, Michael. All right, in our next slides, we'll also go over eligible supportive housing projects. So in terms of eligible supportive housing projects, we are looking for projects that are either 100% supportive housing and integrated supportive housing where a minimum, or integrated supportive housing where a minimum of 25% of the units are supportive housing. Supportive housing is permanent and affordable, but then also being mindful that tenants hold their leases and acceptance of service is not a condition of tenancy. Okay, so as we go over the Supportive Housing Institute, we just want to outline what does the Institute actually look like for Texas. So as you see on this slide, we have the Institute will be structured as 4 hybrid sessions, which include a virtual training via Zoom, but then also 2 in-person training days. Additionally, each session will include a mix of presentations, small and large group discussions, and group activities. That's why it's truly important for all team members to commit to all sessions during the Supportive Housing Institute, because during these sessions, we'll actually be doing homework assignments and completing tangible tasks that outline partner roles, outline partner responsibilities, etc. We also, again, all project team members must commit to attending all training sessions. And then also the Institute's kickoff session will occur, and session 1 will occur simultaneously. So once we do the kickoff for the Institute, we roll straight through the content from day 1. That way we can make sure that we're maximizing the time that we have with all of the partners in the room. The Institute also ends with project presentations, a finale to funders and guests at the finale as well. So part of this is you'll complete the Institute, and then a separate session will include a project finale where we'll be able to help present the ideas that you guys have curated throughout the life of the Institute. And then also CSH staff will lead the trainings and will offer technical assistance to keep your project moving forward and applications for funding. And we really have some really great presenters from different parts of the country that have worked on applications using ARPA funds and different type of things to help hone in on solidifying your plans as they move towards applications and applying for different funding sources, etc. So again, hybrid format, it'll be virtual and in-person. So we're looking at a virtual day 1 week and then 2 in-person days the next week to really hone in on the training, but then also make sure that we have that dedicated technical assistance time to help teams with fleshing out service plans, development plans, etc. And what are the benefits of the Institute? We have learning objectives on supportive housing development, trauma-informed designs and practices, et cetera. So there's a lot of content that goes into the Institute. And we just want to make sure that we take things from theory to practice as we flesh out homework assignments and different service plans and things of that nature. Institute deliverables. Those deliverables include a course of the Institute. Teams will work to develop individual supportive housing project plans. The expected team deliverables include project concepts, including site selections, minimum development designs and characteristics, MOUs amongst members of the supportive housing development team that outline the roles and responsibilities of each partner. We will complete a team vision and mission statement, community support plan, detailed service plans, tenant selection plans. So as we said before, no matter where you are in the process of planning or pre-planning for a supportive housing project, the Institute will be there to help you meet the deliverables that we need to meet in order for you to have a complete project by the time the Institute is over, but then also so that way you can apply for funding at the local and state level as well. And again, technical assistance will be provided during the Institute, but then also intensive technical assistance will be provided following the Institute to be able to answer any of those questions that you may have as you move towards applying for different local and/or state funding. And then benefits from the Institute. Upon completion, participants of the Institute will have a detailed individualized supportive housing plan that includes supportive housing services and delivery strategies that can be used to apply for funding from multiple sources. It'll be an opportunity to improve skills to operate existing supportive housing and develop new projects serving people who experience multiple barriers to housing, a strong, effective development, property management service team that leverages the strengths of each team member and has clear defined roles and responsibilities. So again, making sure that we're rowing in unison and making sure that all project members are on the same page once we leave an Institute and are clear on what their roles and responsibilities are in order to sustain that project, but also that asset. And then a powerful network of peers and experts to assist in project development and to troubleshoot problems, post-Institute technical assistance, as we stated before, and then also support and facilitate connections to local resources.
I'll also mention that there's the grant that teams get after they successfully complete the Institute. The past 2 years, it's been $10,000 per team. It's flexible on how you can use these funds so long as they support your project.
Okay. And this kind of hones in on some of the information we shared, but what are some keys to a successful team? We find that having a passion about ending homelessness, passion for development, understanding, and response to community needs, appropriate partners are included, the planned level of services meets the needs of the population, experience in developing supportive housing and/or affordable housing, including applying for LIHTC, and then leveraging local resources. So these are some things that we find make up a successful team. And again, in August, when we make notification that individuals will be selected for the Institute, we do require that we have commitment from the project team's board chair or member of boards or board executive committee from the project lead organization, just affirming that they recognize that the team will be completing the Institute. And once selected, we can flesh out what that process looks like. And we will be here, Michael and myself, to answer any questions that you may have related to the application process. Okay, so frequently asked questions. Okay, how many teams are we looking to select for the Institute? So this year we're looking to select anywhere between 8 to 10 teams, but we may focus this more so around 6 teams. So we're still fleshing out what does that look like based on the funding. Michael alluded earlier to, we have some ask out there. So based on what does that ask look like, we may go over into 8 to 10 teams, but typically we are about 6 teams. And then also there's no specified timeline by which projects need to come online. So again, we do work with teams that are in all phases of the pre-planning and development projects. So projects already in or nearing construction are eligible to apply. All teams should be clear in their response of how the Institute can help influence their process and implementation. But then also our next question is like, what are we looking for as it relates to these project teams? We are looking for all PSH. We're looking for all PSH projects that are eligible to apply. Culturally specific responsive projects will be prioritized. So partners that are intentional about serving BIPOC communities are strongly encouraged, and also nonprofit agencies that have completed the prior institutes are eligible to apply as well. I see we have a question in the chat from Laura. Laura, do you want to come off mute or just ask the question in the chat? When will the dates of the Institute be published? So we're actually finalizing Institute dates within the next month or so. So by the time that you're notified that the Institute will begin, we will have Institute dates fleshed out by then. And then also Laura asked, is it 3, 1 virtual and 2 in person, or 4? So what this looks like is it is 4 sessions, and 1 session includes 3 sessions. So, or 3 training opportunities to just help with the verbiage here. So 1 session will include 3 training opportunities. 1 of those training opportunities will be virtual, and then 2 of those training opportunities will be in person. So it's a total of 12 training sessions.
And it's not the option of doing virtual or in person. 1 session is both. So there's the delivery of the virtual content, and then it's supported by the in-person training that follows later on that month. So it's a commitment of roughly 3 days per month over the course of 4 months with that final presentation in January. If you are not uncomfortable with in-person training at this point, please let us know as well, and we'll find a way to accommodate that.
Thank you for that, Michael. Does that answer your question, Laura? Perfect. Anyone have any other questions related to eligibility, the application, the session content, anything related to that? No, okay, perfect. So over the next couple of slides, what we'll do is I will actually walk you through using SurveyMonkey Apply. So give me 1 second here. So again, here, can you guys see my screen with the SurveyMonkey workflow? Yes, perfect. All right, so here we have the SurveyMonkey Apply workflow. So using the document that Katie put into the chat, you can select this link, which will take you to the SurveyMonkey page. You have 3 options. You can either apply, you can log in, or you can register. So what I'll do is I will log in. So I'm logging in as an applicant. And what you'll see on this screen is it'll say your name here once you log in, or either register. I'm going to come here to programs, which has all of the programs that I'm eligible for. And you will see at the bottom of the screen, the Supportive Housing Institute application. Just going to click more. And then click apply. You probably remember we clicked apply before, but it'll take you back to this screen here. So just click apply, and it'll ask you to enter your project name. This is test project 2. So once you enter your project's name, this is the actual application here inside of SurveyMonkey. Now, there are 2 tasks that you need to complete. One is the institute information. This is one task. And then the other task is the Texas Institute application, which is the actual application where you enter your team member's name, etc. So let me go back really quickly to the Institute information. So when you come to the Institute information, again, we have institutes throughout the United States. So we want to make sure that you are selecting the option to apply for the 2022 Texas Supportive Housing Institute, okay? So Texas 2022, and then also the state will be Texas as well. You'll mark this as complete, and that is how you complete task 1. And once you complete a task completely, you will see a check mark. The second portion is the Institute application. And this is where we really get specific in terms of who will be working with the project lead at the Institute. I'm going to zoom in here really quickly. And as you see, again, who's the team leader for the Institute? And as you see, this is a required field. So you have to enter your organization's name, the contact person's name, their title and role, and any relevant contact information that you have here. Again, support services provider, that's a required field. Housing development provider, a required field. Property management provider, a required field as well. And then as you see here, additional team members, you will, if it's not required, you will notice that if any or / optional will be available inside of the application screen. And I can't go forth because there's a lot of blanks in here. But again, this is how you use the screen. And use the online application. And as you walk through, if you forget to enter information that's not required, this application will not let you continue. So just be mindful of the fields that are required and answer the questions for the application to your best ability, but then also make sure that you're giving us the information that we need, because again, these will be scored. We're limiting to about 6 teams. If there's opportunity to grow and expand outside of that 6 project team to maybe 8 or 10, then we will invite more teams to the Institute for 2022. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and then allow you guys time to ask questions. Give me 1 second.
I have a question.
Yes.
So this was being spoken about earlier, not quite having all of the required team members, development, property manager, and social services component. So in the application, if we haven't identified those partners specifically, how should we speak to that?
Yeah, that's a good question, Dylan. I think what you can do is you can either put like to be determined, but then also in your application, make sure that you maybe outline a plan on how you plan to maybe communicate or engage those service providers. That way we're aware that if a property manager is missing from the beginning application phases, that to look for that information in the content or short summary portion of the application, and vice versa, depending if it's a service provider or developer. Michael, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think that's fine. Yeah, just put TBD and then explain if you have a list, and you're trying to narrow it down, or what sort of engagement you're doing to try and find that member.
And then another workaround for that as well, Dylan, if you are not email address, I know sometimes formats are big. So if you have to just use your email address for that to be determined person, just use your email address. That way it allows you to go to the next screen.
Great, thanks so much for that.
Mm-hmm.
Technical, how do I hit submit?
Any other questions? Application, about the Institute, goals, anything of that nature? No? Okay. All right, so this webinar will be recorded, so we will find some way to provide it to mass audiences in case someone wants to refer to it. But if you don't have any questions, I truly appreciate your time here with us today. You can reach out to myself. I will include my contact information in the chat in case you have any other questions. Oh, actually, we have a question in the chat from Maria that's asking, are there teams that have gone through the Institute that we can contact to ask about their experience? Michael, do you know anyone that's open about their experience with the Institute?
Yeah, Maria, I'll email you a couple contacts from last year, one in San Antonio and one in Houston, probably.
Okay, perfect. What I'll do also, if you are curious about teams' experiences, email me directly. And then as Michael sends me that information, we'll make sure that we send it out to you as well.
If you want to come off mute, Maria.
Okay, and this has to do with eligibility, and it might be too detailed for everybody else, but when you mentioned eligibility, two things that stuck out to me were the requirement about homelessness, and then the requirement that you can't require services as part of the lease. We're looking at, so we provide long-term supportive housing to women and children experiencing homelessness. And we're working with a developer on an expansion, and we don't know completely what it's going to look like yet. It could be an expansion of our current program, or it could be a follow-on piece. So our current program does require engagement in weekly case management. So if we expand it that way, would that make us ineligible for the Institute? And then another possibility that we have considered is expanding so that it's a follow-on to our program. So we may or may not require engagement in services, but the families would be one step away from homelessness. Like they would have spent 2 or 3 years in our current program where they are involved in very intense services and then move into a less intense program. So are those things that would disqualify us?
So I think as we look at service plans throughout the Institute, we'll probably have to consider, you know, why you guys are making that determination and maybe have conversations about that. But it's definitely something that we can do as reviewers to say, hey, we think that this is great based on, you know, the services that they're providing, or this would be a team that maybe we want to have more discussions about, you know, why they find requiring these tenancy services to be required, because ultimately what we're looking at is moving towards like tenant-based standards where the lease really drives you know, housing retention, and we're not putting those additional program requirements as requirements to keep housing per se. You know, just looking at it from our perspective, I'm a renter, just to disclose, and I don't have any requirements to participate in programs, et cetera. So how are we making sure that we're elevating, you know, that level of landlord tenant responsibility throughout supportive housing projects? So we can talk more offline about it if you're like, let's discuss this before we actually submit the application. But I don't foresee that like disqualifying you, but more so a discussion point that we can have with you and your team.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you.
One of the principles that drives us throughout this is for this to be as inclusive as possible and to find a way to try and accommodate every team.
Mm-hmm.
We certainly understand that supportive housing looks a little bit different depending on the community or the clientele that you're serving, and that there's no one size fits all approach to this. So while there are things that we're looking for, we're not out there to try and disqualify people or make them ineligible. If anything, we're trying to do the opposite, and that's incorporate as many different teams with providing a diverse type of housing and services that complement that housing as possible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great, thank you.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Perfect. All right, so I'll give everybody about 4 minutes of found time here, but if you do have any questions following today's event, I included my information into the chat, so feel free to reach out to me, feel free to reach out to Michael, and we look forward to hearing from you all and working with you. Have a good day.